Shirley, thank you very much for being with us in Radio Activa. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. This is exciting.
Absolutely. I've never had the chance of talking to you and actually see you, and I have so much to talk about with you. But first of all, thank you very much for being a part of GFACT, el Gran Foro Mundial de Artes, Cultura, Creatividad y Tecnología. It's amazing, and of course, we have to talk about culture. Why would you say that creativity is so important for the development of countries and economy?
Well, a time when I think we're all being ravaged by extreme capitalism. I think culture is something that exists somewhat out of that spectrum. I mean, of course, we all need money to survive and pay our bills and put a roof over our heads, but I think art is a salvation. You know, theatre, dance, opera, rock music, whatever, I think is where people go to find solace, to feel less lonely, to sustain them in hardship. And I think, at least when I'm looking out over the globe currently, I feel like there's a lot of pain and a lot of suffering and a lot of misunderstandings. And art, I think, culture brings people together into a space of positivity that allows conversation, dialogue, debate. Yeah, that's why I think it's important. I think we would die without it, quite frankly.
Absolutely, and isn't very interesting how all of the things you mentioned are elements that we can find in music, and
yes,
just one fragment of everything that involves culture. I'm very impressed, and I've always admired your work because, well, you've been in music business for several years. You can say decades, actually. And
you can.
Yeah, and I have to say, I don't think we will have leading ladies in rock and roll like Lauren Mayberry or even Hayley Williams if we didn't have you at the beginning in the alt rock of the 90s. So do you see yourself as a role model?
I do not, but I do understand that, you know, as a generation that continues to move forward, like all generations, you influence those coming up behind you. And it's a great honor for me to be part of what I consider a musical fabric that holds all artists from all decades of, you know, throughout the whole span of time. It feels really the greatest privilege of my life, actually. It's just that
I've perceived it not only with your stage persona, of course, with seeing you on stage. You're so powerful when it comes to live performances, but also going into lyrics and things like queer, androgyny, sex is not the enemy. You have always looked forward to say things that people aren't used to listen to. I hate to say this, but it's true. A woman singing them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think of my own gender in this regard. I think about how effective music is as a distributor of ideas. You know, music, TV, literature, all those parts of culture help communities, societies to understand themselves and also to learn gently about things that perhaps they were uneducated about. Like, I always think that bigotry, hatred, intolerance are a result of a lack of education rather than inherent evil, you know? So I feel like music is a helpful way of reaching people, reaching them inside, you know, where they don't lose face, they have time to adjust, they have time to absorb. That's what makes music so powerful.
And a bit of that message, I think it's coming through also through the podcast, The Jump. I love the conversation you had with David Byrne.
I mean, who doesn't love David Byrne, right? I mean, I was shaking in my shoes speaking to him. I was so excited. And sorry, no, after
continue.
You, please.
No, I have just a few minutes to listen to you.
Go.
So just say whatever you want.
David Byrne rules.
And how has it been working a bit as a journalist on the podcast, because you're also playing that part of asking the right questions?
I find it terrifying. It also makes me realize what a great job people like yourselves do. It's never ever crossed my mind. My little onion brain has never really thought about how it feels to be on the other side of talking to an artist. So it has been actually really educative and fascinating.
But I love also how you've always played a part not only in music, but I saw the videos of some conversations you had on South by Southwest, and of course there was the question on an advice you would give to young talents, and you say, are you tough enough to go through this? I think that was the advice, to ask yourself that question. When you started in music business, of course there was little experience in relation to what you have now, but you thought about it yourself when you were starting, or was it something you asked yourself decades after?
Decades after. But I wished I'd known that was a question, in that this business is incredibly tough, and it's not always about the most talented. It's about how you can manage talent and vigor and toughness. It's a strange job to have. And unfortunately, it's never those who automatically are the most talented that are successful. It's those who can somehow keep themselves together and circumvent a very, very difficult industry.
Had you known that it was going to be that hard, would you still go into music?
Yeah, because I guess I have realized I am tough. I have been able to manage myself, and it's not been easy, but I'm really good at what I do. So, and I haven't had to take mental health breaks, and I haven't cancelled tours, and I haven't, I've just managed to keep soldiering on. And that is one of the reasons why it's not because I'm the most talented by any stretch of the imagination. I wish I was.
I've always thought of music as a reflection of our times, lyrically, musically, and in the most recent Garbage record, there are several lyrics that I was just thinking, they're not keeping punches, they're straight ahead going, and they want to say it. I wouldn't know, and excuse me if I'm not clear enough. English is not my native tongue.
Your English is great.
Thank you. If you don't understand anything, just let me know, please.
Oh, I'll let you know.
But there were several songs that I was like, wow. Would you? There was this line on one that you say something like, "Would you thought of me differently if I had a dick?" Right?
Yeah.
Godhead. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us about that, because I do think that it is still a reflection of our times.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've made no bones about my feelings towards the patriarchy my whole career. I've always said things are harder for women, and I still stick by that. I think I'm getting old and I'm running out of time, and so I'm getting a bit clearer with what I have to say. I'm not making things pretty. I'm being really blunt, because I'm looking at the clock going, oh my God, like how much longer am I going to be able to make records? And so I'm not messing around. And this record is very reflective of our times, and I'm very proud of that. I don't know if there is, I think a lot of artists currently are very scared to say anything, so they say nothing at all. And I feel like these are times when it's really important that artists kind of get to it.
And well, I'm pretty sure you've noticed yourself, but as a fan, I have your records here.
Man, with taste.
Of course. I was thinking, 20 years ago, they were singing about androgyny. And 10 years after the release of that song, we are sort of talking about it. And this question is coming from a third world country, when things are much more conservative than in the US, for example. So why would you say it's so hard to bring some things to the table to talk about, even though we know they exist, they are part of the culture, and these things needs to be talked about?
They do need to be talked about. And I think it goes back to kind of what I was saying earlier. It's about education, right? So those of us who are educated in non-binary thinking understand that there has been more than two sexes for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, centuries upon centuries. It's littered throughout literature and music and art and so on and so forth. So we know they have existed for centuries. But those who have been brought up in believing that gender is simply male or female, to try and break that belief system is really hard. And people get very aggressive and frightened and upset if you start to even enter into conversations about it. So these are big themes. They're big things we're asking people to grapple with. And we have all been kind of brainwashed, through colonialism. We've been brainwashed, and nobody likes to think that they are unknowing. Everybody wants to believe that they know everything, and it's very uncomfortable to not know. And so you fight against any new idea because, God forbid, you go, wow, I had no idea that was a thing,
I think that somehow that's also an element in your music. Garbage came out with a very different sound, and you were surrounded by this heavy testosterone music, Chris Cornell, Eddie Vedder, Kurt Cobain, but you were a little glamorous, and I always liked that,
I think a lot of people like that.
But was it hard playing that part of doing something different when music was pointing at a different place?
Not really. I mean, I think it's never hard to really truly be yourself. I was very much myself. I didn't dress up like you say all the cool girls of that time who were all sort of trying to be like one of the bros. And I was like, no, I love makeup. I love lipstick. I love eyeliner. I want to be me, but also our music was sort of quite aggressive sounding, shades of industrial and hip hop and alt pop and so on and so forth. So no, I wouldn't say it was difficult. What was challenging was how the press at that time, which was very sexist and misogynistic, dealing with that was the challenge, because it was unpleasant to be talked of in the terms that they used towards me sometimes.
Well, I'm glad you did it. I'm pretty sure that you helped a lot of people.
Thank you.
They're just telling me that we don't.
No,
have
don't leave me! Don't leave me!
Ask them. Perfect, Shirley. Once again, thank you very much. I'm just gonna go and say it. I think you're the first lady of alt rock.
Thank you.
It's been 30 years making music, and it's awesome. And I hope you guys come back to Colombia again.
I hope so. From your mouth to God's ears. Muchas gracias. This is Shirley from Garbage. You're listening to Radio Activa Rock Planet.